I'm fucking tired, man. I have not had much proper sleep in the last 36 hours. Family dog got put to sleep today. It's been rough. I guess, pardon the pun there, rough. Um, but I'm kind of in like a wonderfully don't care kind of mood. And I don't mean like in a nihilistic don't care, but just kind of in the midst of tragedy and sadness. It's in a way easier to kind of see things for what they are outside of that immediate emotional bubble, especially when you start to become aware of the world again afterwards. Just how horribly stupid everything is. So, yes, the title of this video does hold both sides. No, they are not the same. They don't do quite the same things, and how you measure the evils of one against the other is quite clearly a subject of much debate, as it has never been resolved. And yet here we are. You're always going to obviously see political violence on the side that is not in power at any given time. They both do it. Most of the people in this country, and by extension much of the rest of the world, don't think that I'm automatically letting you European fuckers off the hook, because you're basically just downwind of us as our bitches. And same with Canada. You let us set the tone and the mood and the culture. So don't think you escape this entirely. But Americans in particular are right now suffering from mass paranoid delusions. And obviously not every last single person. There's a small percentage of us who are able to see through the illusionary screen, the grid that's laid over everything, that's constantly trying to pull our perceptions and toy with our emotions and make us feel things so that we'll react in certain ways. But it is ultimately media induced in the population and has been there for quite some time. This delusional state isn't brand new. It's just reaching a critical mass at the moment. And not everyone who's affected by it and has absorbed these delusions are themselves directly gained it from media consumption. But so many people did gain it from media consumption that it has rippled out across the population and then amplified by the internet, especially the way the current Web.3, or hell, are we secretly on Web 4.0 at this point? The way everything's been siloed so that we're not even in bubbles. Everyone's like in their own little tiny column of information that they're exposed to because of the way the algorithms are playing with all of us. And that's enhanced the delusion, certainly. But there's just so much extreme paranoia, and it's based out of little that is true. I wouldn't say that it's all false, because in order to be able to induce a paranoid state, there has to be a glimmer of truth to it. Otherwise, it might not take hold. But everyone's been trained now to see enemies everywhere. And by media, I don't just mean left-wing media, though Fox News has from its very beginning played this, oh, we're the alternative to the mainstream bullshit, as the long-running major biggest cable news channel with the highest ratings. That means they are mainstream. But I don't just mean television news as media or Hollywood. It's just our entire media culture and apparatus, all the way down to AM radio. In order to be able to get clicks in the old-fashioned way of people tuning in for ratings, they had to engage in much simpler versions of the same tactics people currently use to get views on YouTube, and I'll get a bit more on that subject here in a minute. And sensationalism has always been one of the major keys to put asses in seats, to get people to turn on their radio, to change the channel to your channel, or to click on your YouTube video, or TikTok, or whatever social media platform you're using. You know, periodically on this channel, I will bridge off the subject of role-playing games, because even though, I've enjoyed my time writing them, and I enjoy them as a hobby, they are not the only interest I have and the only stuff I want to talk about. But especially when veering into serious real-world subjects like politics, there's always invariably a couple people who will leave whiny comments or even go so far as to unsubscribe. You know, over there, like, oh, I just only want to see soft entertainment and have escapism. But, you know, which is great. I understand that. I don't want to be so dismissive, but just call it weakness, even though, like, on a kind of guttural, primal level, I guess it's kind of how I view that sort of attitude. But it's not without reason. The world is horrible, so, you know, a desire to want to escape it is natural, but it's also unhealthy because you can't escape reality. For a long time, human existence was defined by, look, you motherfuckers, we have 2 weeks to get up over that mountain pass before the snows start and we all freeze to death in this valley. We were never meant to live such lives of luxury, constant entertainment, having all the food we can eat, instant communication, being able to know everything that's going on around the entire world at a moment's notice, access to the entire library of human history and thought and literature, art and entertainment at all times, 24/7. Like, that's... It's like we're an 80s rock musician that's been put into a warehouse full of cocaine. You know, are you going to be surprised to find all of Motley Crue dead the next day after you reopen the warehouse and see what they were up to overnight under those circumstances? Americans are not each other's enemies. Humans are not each other's enemies. Aside from a few basic things like physical characteristics that we can't change and we had no choice in the matter in terms of what we were born with, almost all these other things we've overlaid on ourselves in terms of things that we turn into our identities, our religions, our politics, our hobbies, our tastes, and various things. All the stuff that you can build up a narrative that there's some sort of character that you are, and these are your character's traits, which has also been enhanced by the internet since all these social media sites. Well, you got to fill out a little bio about yourself. So how do you describe you when all you are is this amorphous, floating entity of self-awareness that's attached to this animal body and floating through life? How do you put that into a 14-character Twitter bio? You know, how does that impress anyone? The whole point of social media is to be noticed and gain attention and all that kind of shit. Even though people are constantly deriding other people at times for, like, oh, you're just doing that for clout, or you're just doing that for views. It's like, I mean, what the fuck are you doing on the internet yourself, hey? You know? In many ways, the channel isn't working as a gaming channel and as an advertising platform for me. Not to say that I don't have actually a reasonable amount of sales every month. I mean, I sell about a book a day on average, which is better than most self-published people accomplish, especially on any sort of like long-term thing. And the YouTube channel no doubt helps spread the word, although the algorithm does not show any favoritism to showing any ads I make for my products, so I have to bury them in other subjects. And I've never really been a D&D person. I kind of got into 5th edition there in my 30s, just because it was after a long drought of no gaming, and it was a game that people actually showed interest in playing. If you put an ad out on meetup.com or whatever, looking for players, whereas like there's a long period of time trying to find people who are interested in playing other games I'm into, like Rifts and stuff. Like, yeah, you might find one or two people, but if you're looking for like a minimum size group before you even really want to like start your game, then your game's never going to get off the ground. And so D&D was where the action was at. And it's also, unfortunately, where the action is at, and when it comes to gaming content on this platform. But there are better games with better settings that aren't so fucking stupid childish and don't have these embarrassing amount of adult men who are in my age bracket who are still acting like fucking half-retarded 12-year-olds about this game, arguing about the verisimilitude of elves and whether or not Dragonborn should be gay, or whatever stupid fucking thing. Like, oh my god, do crippled people exist? Yeah. I mean, do you ever like stop and examine yourself and some of the stupid fucking things some of you have been saying on the internet about stuff in the last decade? Ever? Any ounce of self-awareness? I mean, yes, as I said, not everyone is suffering from all these paranoid delusions, but a lot of people are. So odds are high that I might actually be talking about you, specifically watching this video right now, and not the royal you that you can absolve yourself. I don't actually mean you. I mean you in a general sense. The YouTube audience that exists behind this camera right here. Hi. And even then, D&D videos don't actually get a tremendous amount of views unless it's salacious. Is D&D stealing your rights? Is D&D doing something controversial? Has D&D gone woke? Yeah. Like, is there a way we could rope someone there at Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast to say they were involved in the Epstein files? We need something juicy to actually get views, even on D&D content. Like, no one gives a shit about my opinion on whatever. They just want to hear someone rant about something controversial that hopefully already agrees with the stuff that they want to hear people say. Like, how many of those videos am I supposed to make? And then if I try to do anything else, it's real hit and miss on whether or not people even bother watching it. Mostly a miss. Like, none of you motherfuckers have, like, watched a single one of the fucking Starfield videos I've put up in the last week. And I know the internet told you to not like Starfield, so, your opinion's valid and all. But it's not like I didn't actually put like some amount of creative work into exactly what's going on there, and it's not just an hour of solid raw footage, or anything. But whatever. You got better things to do with your life, like be angry at people you've never met. And listen to YouTubers complain about people you've never met and are never going to meet. But they hate you secretly, right? Yeah. They're all out to get you. They're trying to destroy Western civilization. That doesn't exist and never has existed. There's a segment of the population that has internalized some of the phraseology from Tolkien's works about men of the West. That's fictional. There is no West. There is no East. There's no Occident. There is no Orient. We are not the center of the earth. No one is the center of the earth. We're all just delusional primates whose brains talk too much. So much of reality and what we perceive to be true is all actually a function of language. And language isn't actually real. I can make mouth noises and say, this is a pen. Pen. Is that really what this is? This is a fluid of molecules that currently has been temporarily frozen in this shape. And in 1 billion years, these molecules and atoms will still exist. But are they a pen? Were they a pen when they were oil in the ground, before they were converted through chemistry into the plastics and component parts and the little bit of metal that's in here? Is that what any of this shit is? We are fluid beings in a fluid universe. And the most delusional thing about us is that we believe all of our petty little lives are real. You choose your reality. You yourself handpick the things that you have affixed to your own grid of perception. You control how you view language and your understanding of the definition of terms and what they mean to you. By virtue of the fact that people can so easily swap their identities in and out, in the same way, you can very easily swap your whole paradigm of life in and out at a moment's notice, just because of the fact that you are, and this is something that the people in power don't want you to know, allowed to change your mind. But if I want regular good views on videos, so that I could maybe get a few people to check out my links to DriveThruRPG at Amazon.com, blah, 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 then I have to lean into controversial topics that don't make me feel good having to talk about them and focus on them all the time. And they seldom really, aside, you see a spike in view count on a video, but they don't always lead to like an influx of subscribers who are often alienated soon after by some other opinion I say, because I do not categorize easily, which also doesn't really help me much with the algorithmic nature and sorting processes that the modern internet is based upon. If you're not easy to categorize, they don't know what to do with you. There's not even really a category for the uncategorizable, because that's a huge mess with no similarity to any of itself. The world is sick, and we can blame our politicians. We can blame degeneracy. We can blame corporations. We can blame communism, and we can blame capitalism. But the real culprit is us, ourselves, collectively. We should have more exclusivity when it comes to identity. People should not be able to so easily categorize themselves as political affiliates. If you're not a direct, active member of the party apparatus, then you should not call yourself a Republican or a Democrat just because you vote for them, even if it's in their primaries. It's just a lure to get you to assign your loyalty to them forever, so that they can do whatever they want and still count on your vote, because now tribalized team dynamics are now in play. Little considering that how that will evolve over a couple of decades. The first generation might be doing it cynically and understand what the plan is, but when they've all grown old and died, and the people who have stepped in to take their place are all people who are raised by and believed the bullshit. And that's where the system starts to break down. That's why the idea of generational wealth breaks down after a few generations. Because the grandkids don't really know what the actual trick of it all was. They never had to learn. And so it's much more likely for them to fail. And on a political scale, at least as far as the post-World War II singularity era that we are in, too many of the greatest generation are dead. Well, actually, basically, they're all dead. And the boomers are more phased out than people seem to realize. In many ways, Generation X has pulled a terrific trick, because there's a lot of stuff that are being pinned on boomers right now that's actually Generation X's fault. But, it's kind of appropriate that no one seems to notice us anyway. Although apparently, technically, I'm a zillennial, because I was born in '78, so that kind of puts me in this little window of crossover between millennials and Generation X, where I'm not really quite either, but similar to both. In truth, even that whole generation thing, there were no boomers, there were no Generation X, there's no millennials, there's no Generation Z, there's no Generation Alpha. A generation is the span of lifetime of every human being currently alive. So a generation could actually span over 100 years, but it's always constantly shifting. What we're calling generations is a marketing gimmick used to sell things to high school kids and kids in college by constantly creating a cycle of rebellion against the previous generation's trends and preferences and all that. Although if you pull back enough from it, you realize that they're just selling the same Nirvana t-shirt over and over again, actually. So really, it's all cosmetic. It's just labeling. It's just marketing. Generation Z is as real as the word fresh on a 7-Eleven fucking taco. Which is to say, it doesn't mean anything at all, because it's not legally binding language. So much of the world is born out of sadness, actually. A lot of the anger and angst and hate and craziness that goes on is actually really born because people are sad and don't know how to handle it. We're so separated from each other now for cynical reasons that there's no community in which to console yourself. We're all suffering from information overload, even those of us who are not caught up in the paranoid delusions that rule so many people's lives. Get over yourselves and stay waspinated.